else, and I'm valuing my own well-being before theirs. The
Yeah,
reason
my
I'm
own.
assaulting that person, or whatever, is because I'm after what I'm after, and I don't care about them, right? But
Yes.
that doesn't follow from the division between the self and the others. That okay,
Well, no,
someone else, you don't have to care about someone else. That's the whole idea of morality, is that you do need to care about other people besides yourself. You need to care about
I
others.
agree. But when we talk about non-duality, there's various factors that come into play. Like when the mystic talks about the dissolution of the boundaries between self and other, it's not just simply that they're talking about dissolving boundaries. There's also you can call it the Christian agape that's there, and it's something I felt in my own like psychedelic experiences where I had no other word but to describe it as agape, like infinite unconditional love that's at the very heart of existence itself. And when you break down all boundaries, as the mystic does, you can see it. Like this is what mystics mean by Brahman, God, so on and so forth. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's indelible. It's etched into your very being. I can never murder you, brother, because I've seen a love so infinite that, man, forget about it, man. I'd rather kill myself before I kill you.
Yeah. Before we go on, I just want.
Okay, but just to be fair, you're distinguishing between you and me, right? You're saying you'd rather kill yourself than me. So I mean,
Well,
there
the
you
thing
go,
is,
valuing the other. There's an important distinction between you and me, right? And you reflect it
okay.
in your morality when you say that.
Not necessarily. Like it's just a cumbersome of language and disposition that we have to describe it in such a way. Like what the mystic is really trying to describe is like complete unity, complete oneness. I mean, the Hindu yogi understands. They call it nama rupa, name and form. In other words, like whatever it is, it's eternal. They can't. But in order to even speak on it, in order to even express it, it must necessarily be construed or deduced to the.
Must be relational. But the thing is that Joel's getting at is there's kind of no way around it. If you're going to say everything is non-dual, then everything is identical. Distinction shouldn't appear. There are no patterns or boundaries at all, if that's the case, right?
Yes, and I think
the thing I wanted to add, though, is just to say that non-duality never meant any of those things, but it's a very easy way to refute it because of your assumption about that. So what a non-dualist may want to say is that distinctions do exist, but they're just not ultimately separate substances.
Exactly.
So we're sort of like relations within the greater system.
It's like a necessary illusion, if you will, or I don't even want to say it like that.
Well, the boundary that you're talking about, a boundary, and so that's not a thing in itself. So it's just a way of describing a difference within a continuous field. So, for example, like a coastline exists, but it is just a pattern in ocean-land interaction. It's not really a boundary you can actually say and put in your pocket and walk away with. Like,
or I really love the way Terence McKenna put it. He said, the purpose of the ego is so that when I pick up my food with my spoon, I put the food in my mouth instead of your mouth,
instead of someone else's.
Yeah, instead of someone else's.
Let me just introduce DeFreak. He's been on the stage for a minute, and I didn't want to be rude. So, how you doing, DeFreak?
Hey, Scott. Nice to meet you, panelists. I know Cafe pretty well, and nice to meet you. Was it Joel? So continue, please, because I don't want to interrupt what you guys are cooking right now.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, Cafe.
Yeah, So I guess that's what I was trying to get at. You pinpointed very nicely, Scott, that it's just like a kind of like a necessary limitation of language that that you have to refer to it in such a way. Like even the Buddha, if he said, "Hey, Gautama," he would probably say, "What?" That shows that the ego is there, but ego death is not something that's permanent. It's not something that's supposed to be, it's now gone. Like it's a realization. It's something. It's an insight you come back to.
Right, like most of your teachers are going to say that separate minds and objects, rather than something divided, it's really just experience structuring and navigating itself. So it's not so easily to come to. I mean, like Rupert Spira would say, you are not a person who is aware. You are the awareness in which the idea of a person arises.
Yeah.
But that follows with everything else that exists also. So it's just that awareness of it. And that's what brings you to a more empathetic, sort of, and science can tell a story about mirror neurons. Like, like you see people in pain. Like, you ever see the guy get kicked in the nuts or something? All of a sudden you're grabbing your shit because it's like, oh, that got hurt. That's mirroring the.
I like the Pierre. I'm gonna botch his name, but Teilhard de Chardin. That the French Jesuit priest. He said, we're not, human beings. Having like material experience, like we're souls having like a human experience. Like he tried to flip it, like like you wear your material body like clothing, like spiritual clothing, and he tried to turn it, the idea on its head of like people who are very bought into the illusion of materialism and so forth. Like if you flip that on its head, you get this very exotic spiritual perspective. Yeah.
It's really just a shift in the way you look at things, and and if you look at things in a particular way, it's going to create a lot of hard problems to conceive of because you're looking at it in a certain way. But I agree with what Joel says, though, 100%, that really, though, the whole import of doing good to others is the fact that they are not you. That's the whole point. Like Jesus said, what good is it if you do good to yourself and your brothers? Go to the stranger and do good. That's when you want to. In other words, he was saying, if you really want to impress God, don't do stuff just for the people that are important to you.
I mean,
it ends up like a
imagine. You could imagine somebody who is totally self-absorbed and just, acted totally immorally towards other people in the most selfish ways. And you say, well, hey, don't you ever think about other people? And they could answer you, well, there are no others, right?
Yeah.
They could literally say that to you as a justification for the way that they're treating everyone.
Well, isn't that what Dave was arguing
when we're just kind of stipulating that they're treating people immorally?
That's what Dave was trying to tell me the other day when he was saying about the problem with your non-duality and monism is it really just kind of leads to a very self-absorbed kind of, oh, I am the universe, how special. But, my whole thing about that is, though, identity is the problem. Like, only if identity holds, but then that's dualism because it's you versus the world. But if you lose the identity, then you can lead actually to the opposite. But like I said, it just depends on how you look at things and little subtle differences that make all the difference. But because it makes a lot of sense. It's like the whole idea, like one of the things that I do as a non-dual practice is called embracing duality. That's actual teaching. Embracing duality is a non-dual teaching. And what that means is that you can sort of get in touch with non-duality by recognizing the other and then doing kind acts, whether they be big or small, manageable things you can do in public for others that you don't know. But the whole basis of that is that they are others. They're not people you know. They're not people that you don't see them as you. It's like you see them as other. So you embrace that concept of duality. But by doing good towards quote unquote others, you're sort of embracing that empathy, that compassion, and seeing the other as yourself in some ways. It can be very complicated, if you look at it a particular way, but it makes sense on another view. Hey, Robin, how you doing?
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. How you doing today?
Oh, I've been cleaning the house all day, so.
Well, when you're done, you know where to go.
Yes, but I will never get done. That's the thing.
Oh, shit. Then I guess my house will never get finished.
Hey, Robin.
What's up, Robin?
Hey, DeFree, what are you doing?
Just hanging out.
You got some good company you hanging out with anyway.
Thank you, Robin. Do you have any thoughts about the convo so far, or have you been?
Oh, I just seen news on, and we've got Dave's that's not after a while, but I wanted to jump in and say, hey, just let you know I was out here. Say hi to Skyworks out there, and Big Nick, and who else is out there? World Teacher.
Yeah, I'd like to get Objective Ethics on one day to do a little update interview. Yeah, that'd be cool. I like Objective Ethics.
Yes, yeah, Objective Ethics. Let's see who else there. Blocks out there. I don't see music. Like me and Skyworks and Exy Music, we're usually pretty hard on everybody in the chat out there.
Yeah, and he's got some really good arguments for objective morality and stuff. I've got different ones that work for me if I was going to promote something like an objective morality type of thing, but I think
who, Objective Ethics?
Yeah, Objective Ethics. You know how he's always arguing for that?
Yeah. Him and Nobody on Fire, who also has a system. I don't know if you've met him or not.
Oh, I haven't.
Nobody on Fire and OE are going to be like teamed up to debate together, like against for that. They both have a system. I think they have a slightly different system. Like, and I won't even pretend to go into it. There's like a few atheists that have those kind of views. Like T-Jump also has like a objective. I'm supposed like that's what he claims. I don't know. I haven't really been convinced by any of them yet. Like I think
it's hard, isn't it? It's real hard to kind of get, isn't it? Because
I think they're all subjective. Like like the atheists and the theists. So I just think that most of them just come down, as Travis or Pangburn says, they come down to our sentiments.
Yeah. And, as long as you look at your experience as a subjective thing, then it's really going to be hard to argue objectivity outside of your subjective experience. And if it's not outside of your experience, then it's subjective by nature. But then you could then argue that everything in your experience is subjective.
Well,
I think the only thing you could really do is you could appeal to inner subjectivity, like say the theory of evolution.
Like most of our experiences.
Yeah, that's not a subjective idea. That's more like a scientific fact.
Theory.
And, theory. And so it's like intersubjective. It's like other minds have shared and we've all sort of converged on interpreting the evidence this way or that way. And it all makes sense, and it accounts for the observations we can all share in. Whereas something like morals seem to diverge across cultures and people and stuff like that. It's like, some people think homosexuality is immoral and some people don't.
Oh, is Cafe in here? Cafe left, I guess.
Cafe.
No, I'm still here. I'm about to head out though.
He was getting ready to head out. Okay, I can't see the screen.
But I wish I had an opportunity to talk to you more, Robin. Maybe another time. Maybe later on Gretchen's stream or something.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. All right. Rest of you, you know I love you, brother Scott, man. You know it's always fucking cool. The freak, man. You know we're always badass. Joe, I really love what you brought to the table, man. Appreciate it, man.
Good talking to you today.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time. Yeah. But hold on, I'm gonna go get a drink real quick. Pardon me. You guys, please carry on.
Oh, a drink.
I was just gonna say, I remember hearing Cafe call in to the Atheist Experience channel like years and years and years ago. So I thought it was pretty cool when I first ran into him here.
Was Matt there when he called in?
Probably, yeah, probably.
Because I doubt that Matt dealt with Cafe's religious ideals very well.
No, that was one of the things that made it memorable.
So you said Nobody on Fire and Objective Ethics are having a debate.
Yeah, and I can't remember where the debate is, but they're going to be like partners. It's a 2v2 debate. I think it's on Sarah's channel. I'm sorry, it's on Sarah's channel.
Okay, so
I'm not sure.
So they're not debating each other. They're going to be debating two other whatever.
Yeah, they're debating.
Yeah.
Like they're a 2v2.
That should be good.
That's a pretty strong team right there. Really.
Yeah, pretty strong. Like no nonsense.
Nobody on Fire's got all that logic stuff just pinned down. You know what I mean? Like, if they start trying to bro him, he knows kind of how to get around all that crap and bust all that up.
Yeah. I think so far the only kryptonite I've seen for our Nobody on Fire is Grace and Ben Thorpe.
That's just because they're just really hard to deal with, I think. Not that they're better. I don't think that neither one of them, I think Nobody on Fire is in a different league of logic than what any of the people that we pretty much are around know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he's looking for the truth, and Ben is, looking for clicks, basically. But yeah. That's what they do. So, that's what they do.
Yeah. They're kind of, I don't know. They kind of creep me out a little bit, but but like Menard creeps me out too, though. So.
Yeah, Menard is a wild man. I don't know if he's calmed down yet or not.
He was on Tacos last night, so.
Oh wow! I missed that part.
Yeah, I hadn't seen you around there. I hadn't seen you around Tacos or Gretchen's much.
Well, I won't be going over to Gretchen's anymore, so.
No.
But I was over at Tacos here and there.
But you ain't banned over there. You know that, right? You're not banned over there.
No, I'm banned over there.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
So it's whatever.
I don't know, maybe you are. I thought I asked and they said you weren't, so I don't know. Maybe but you get in trouble every other day, so I never know what's going on.
Why do you usually get in trouble?
Yeah, always getting in trouble over there or wherever. So,
what happens?
Well, it's, I don't know. It's just it's the ego thing for everybody, I guess. But first of all, I don't like getting mooted at a chat for no reason, and that usually triggers me pretty good. So
I have no idea what the chat is saying. The truth floating, setting people free.
Oh yeah, he's saying that you get banned when you tell the truth.
Yeah, that's probably true, depending on the channel. But there's just way too many thin-skinned, emotional, rash decision mods out there right now. So it's probably just a cycle. They'll cycle out after a while.
I don't know what X Music. What are you talking about? What is atheist orthodoxy?
Yeah, that might be some of the atheists that have like certain followers, like they follow certain figures, like religious figures. You know how they tease about Matt being the king of the atheist, or Richard Dawkins being the godfather of atheism. You know, apparently there are people that converge and make groups around figures, public figures, and atheist speakers.
I don't
like
most atheists I know don't even like Richard Dawkins very much at all, actually, especially since he turned out to be like a transphobe.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is that what they'll tell you is that the people that turn on particular atheists is usually going to be for reasons other than atheism. Like it'll be like the other things that get entailed in on atheism. Like, I'll be honest with you, I used to call it just a feeling I'm getting, but then it got very clear that within certain groups, if I start talking about non-dualism or something like that, I'm no longer welcome or invited, and I get a lot of heat. I'm no longer a good person in their view. Now, it has nothing to do with atheism, because I've always thought of atheism as just, an answer to one question. That has nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. And then people, they kind of feel like, well, if you're not in with the right, if you're not being politically correct, let's put it that way.
I don't have that hatred of Richard Dawkins. He did a lot of good work for evolution and like teaching evolution and stuff. I do think he's wrong about the science on trans people. I don't know if he's old and had that stroke and he can't think anymore about what he's doing, or he just I don't know what he's like. He's stuck in his dogma about it. That
he's so dogmatic. Like he says he doesn't believe certain people can have certain pronouns. He rejects all of that.
Well, he said sex is binary, and like that is not what that doesn't agree with anything that like evolutionary biology teaches nowadays. Like maybe back when he was like, doing work, it was what I don't think so though. I think it's like bimodal distribution. It's binary.
But then why does he ascribe a gender to his computer? He ascribes a gender to his favorite chat girlfriend he calls Claudia, and calls it a she. So is it biologically female?
Yeah, cars, and yeah.
It's all inconsistent. It's all rather confusing to me. I don't know.
Lord. All right, I used to agree with X Music, but no, I'm not going to today. But that'd be all right. I still love him. But I'm gonna get ready to go over to Dave's, and like after a while, when you get done, you're streaming or whatever, y'all pop in over there. I don't know.
Yeah, man. I'll definitely jump on OE tomorrow when he comes on.
Oh yeah, well he's got a stream. He's having a stream tomorrow on what is it? He's with somebody he's interviewing for like deconversion story, and I can't think of who it is.
Okay, that'll be interesting.
I can't remember. You might have to look at it. I'm bad at it.
Do you know a guy named I think it's called the something Republic, the Unapologetic Republic or something like that. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I'm trying to get him to come on the show. Yeah,
I don't think
he's
I've
like
heard of him.
This guy. Let me see if I can pull him up. I'm gonna try to get. We've been talking about doing a show together.
What about you and Sophia? Like y'all still good, ain't you?
Oh yeah, we're good. We're all good. The Silent Republic. That's who it is. The Silent Republic. And he mainly talks a lot about, I guess, politics, like progressive, liberal type of stuff, and criticizes like MAGA real heavy and shit. And he's an atheist too, but he sort of, I guess, he kind of watched a little bit of my channel or whatever. And he's been trying to embrace more idealism and stuff. He thought it was really good stuff. So he wanted to come on and talk about that. He's not really convinced of it, but he thinks it makes a lot better sense than physicalism, which he was a physicalist really heavy, you know. But anyways, we're supposed to be doing some talks on metaphysics and maybe talk a little bit about, you know, politics a little bit.
Oh, politics is fun. Yeah, like OE said, Robin, I want you to like help me with politics because OE doesn't do politics too much. But
I don't either. I'll be quite honest with you. And you know, I don't know if you knew this, Robin, but me and Sophia, no, we did tell you about that. Remember we were saying about we used to have a conservative podcast we used to do, me and her.
Yeah. Oh, really? Sophia was a conservative?
Oh, yeah.
Big time. Wild.
Yeah. And, you know, it was so funny because that was one of the things that got me on the outs with some of these atheist groups is they thought that I was indoctrinating this black lady.
Oh, my God. Like Sophia.
And they
like
listening
Sophia ain't got a mind of her own. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's like... And then some people were telling me, no, we know Sophia, she's been into that all along. And I think she's indoctrinated Scott into that conservative stuff.
Yeah, that would probably be more like it anyway. Sophia. So,
yeah,
like that's just so arrogant, though, somebody to be like, oh, this poor black woman don't even know how to think without him telling her how to think.
Yeah, it's always a white guy you're trying to find you a token black female so that you can promote that bullshit of yours. It really was just it was like, man, believe me, that channel did not last too long. We started getting threats and all kinds of shit, but I just kind of deconstructed out of that conservative stuff pretty quick. Like, it's never really been my forte anyways, politics. And then I decided, well, Sophia's into this conservative stuff. Maybe we can do a channel because she had been talking to me about a whole lot of stuff. And then we did the channel. So it was more like I was kind of middle of the road, but leaning towards conservatism on certain things. But it just got to the point where none of that shit made any sense. And I just kind of quit. And then that was the first time me and Sophia had problems because she was like, why did you just quit the channel, man? You just quit. It's like I just couldn't do it anymore. I figured out conservatism just not for me. It just doesn't work for some reason.
So you'll be broke. It'll work you right into your broke is what it'll do.
Yeah. Especially when Trump came along and all that bullshit. It's like, fuck.
Look, we're gonna make you freak mad here in a minute. He'll be calling you a communist here pretty soon. Everybody's either MAGA or communist. he thinks there's only two. He thinks there's only two positions: MAGA and communism.
Yeah.
Ain't that right, to freak?
Keep it simple.
Man.
You're so silly. Hey, Joel. I'm sorry I didn't even let you talk or nothing.
Hey, Robin. I actually did say hey when you came in. I think it just
you're very low.
Oh, that's probably my fault.
I got a new headset. Is that better?
Yeah, that's a whole lot better.
Hey, yeah, sorry about that. Hey, what's up?
No, pretty good. I'm been cleaning the house all day. You know, I just saw Scott on. I thought I'd jump on and say hey.
Same thing. I'm like walking around doing chores, mostly muted.
My daughter went to Michigan for 3 days. So, like, I have 4 cats, and she left me her dog, which does not like my 4 cats. So like I've had to like put my cats in one part of the house and the dog in the other part of the house. That's what I've been doing, is just trying to keep fights from breaking out. That's what I've been doing.
Man, last
like
week
with my kids.
Yeah, you gotta be the tournament referee.
My kids are grown now, so I got one that lives. She lives behind me in my little house back there. She's 20, and the other one's 34. So
yeah, I got 2 little kitty cats. You know,
I got
how
4
many?
cats. 4.
Oh, wow.
3 of them hurt. She left me a snake, a bearded dragon, a leopard gecko, and 3 cats when she went to college.
Wow.
I thought I was the biggest crazy cat lady.
Nope, that's me. I've got 4.
Well, my cat surprised the shit out of me. So I had this little boy. I have this little boy cat. He's real sweet. Came up in my lap, meowing, rubbing his little head on me and all of that. Wanted to go outside, and there's a window. He usually wants me to open the window and let him out. So I'm like, oh, what a sweet little kitty. He wants to go outside. And I open the window, and he jumps out and just murders this squirrel right in front of my eyes.
Oh, God.
I'm like, oh, my geez. I tried to stop it. I wasn't fast enough. And
I don't let mine outside. But, like, I'll tell you, you can buy a collar that has a bell on it, and it'll save all of your, like, animals, your birds and your squirrels and stuff. Like, just get them a collar that's got that little bell on it. It gives them away. They can't sneak up on shit.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, but mine don't go outside because I live right, like, on the main strip in town. And, like, I'm very close to a main road right here. They'd be hit by a car, and I would just lose my mind.
Oh, man.
I make them stay in the house. Plus, I don't want them getting fleas and stuff out there. So.
That's right. Them fleas are horrible. You know, and I'm always fighting fleas, so I gotta put flea powder on the carpet and floor and all over the place.
See, we do them little things where you put like just a little daub of it, like behind their, like right behind on their neck, like right there between like their shoulder blades.
Oh, really?
They can't lick it off. Yeah,
right.
It's pretty expensive.
What is it like? What is it? A drop or something?
Yeah, it comes in a little plastic, this little thing. You just twist the little cap of it off, and then like you squeeze that stuff out right in between their front shoulder blades, and they can't.
Where do you get it?
We get ours. Tara orders ours from like off of from Chewy, I think. She orders a lot of stuff from Chewy.
Chewy. Okay, I'm gonna get some of that.
Yeah, like it's supposed to, we do it once a month. We do them all of them once a month. They got a
like Chewbacca.
At the vet, they've got one that lasts 3 months, but the ones that we buy from Chewy, I think, are just a month. So, and they can't. You have to put it right there between those two because they can't lick right there. So you have to, because they'll try to lick it off. They don't like it too much, actually, when we do it. X Music said they just got their youngest through college. Mine's got 2 more years, X Music, 2 more years. My oldest one, she's a chemistry and a biology teacher. That's what she teaches in 2 things in high school.
Hey, Robin, there was this like big stories last week or a couple weeks ago about like these ticks or whatever, the Texas, whatever, Lone Star tick or something. Have you seen any of that there?
What they do? They got.
Well, apparently if they get you, they can basically make you allergic to like red meat, so that you don't.
Oh yeah. Well, they're here. They're already. My mom. It's called alpha gal. And like my mom can't eat pork or like it infected a whole lot of people here in Kentucky. Like it's called alpha gal, and you can't, like, anything that like nurses its young, you can't eat the meat of that anymore. So like you can eat like birds and fish. That's it. Like chicken, turkey, any kind of fish, but like pork or anything that nurses its young you become allergic to it. Like sometimes you're more allergic to the beef than you are the pork. Mom has to be tested like every month for it. But
wow,
it's awful because I mean it make you deathly sick. I'm glad I don't. Ticks don't bite me. I haven't found a tick on me in like 25 years.
well, that's good. Yeah,
Like ticks are
yeah.
like stay away from her. Because I mean, like we used to have those little bitty old deer ticks at like around there. And my friend, she would burn. She would go outside and she would just be covered in them things, and I would have to sit and pick them off of her, like in her hair and
Oh
stuff.
no.
And I would have none on me, none. Like they just don't bite her. You will die. That's what they like. Like
Yeah, no, that's
that must be nice.
that's pretty scary stuff. Like,
yeah.
Because like
It's called alpha
Bill
Gale.
Gates, whatever. I mean, you hear all the different stuff. Who knows what's true? But you hear that, and it's like, I don't know. It's just that's the biological stuff is what freaks me out. Like in terms of like warfare or like population control or social control. Like that's what scares me.
That alpha Gale, like it ain't no fun. Like I would just freak out without my pork.
Yeah, ribs, pork ribs, heck yeah.
Like
Bacon,
I like every part of the pig except the pickled pig feet. So that's what I'm not going to eat. The rest of it, I like pork. So
yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I don't like the feet either.
no. Have you ever seen pickled pig's feet though? Because like here in Kentucky, some places used to have them things. I don't know if they still do that, but like like pickled bologna jars, instead of pickled bologna in it, it had like pickled pig's feet.
I think I have.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen those before.
Yeah, I never really went for it though.
No, me neither. No. But I'm assuming that people did, or they wouldn't have continued to bottle them up like that.
So, do they like when you watch the news, like the local news? Do they tell you like do they have a tick report or like infestation or pestilent like report?
I don't watch the local news, but I mean, like this has been going on. My mom's had this for like 3 or 4 years, and
Wow.
And I've got an aunt that had it for like 2 years before her. And then I know a woman who used to order emu meat, and because she had it, like one of my ex-bosses, his wife, like ordered emu meat.
Yeah, like those are ostriches or something, right?
Yeah, sort of like they're those things that kicked Australia's butt twice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they're birds, so but something about they can like make the meat sort of taste like, to where it's kind of like beef or something.
Steaky.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's Well, I'm out in the desert, so there's not really a whole lot of large population of like huge swarms of bugs or anything, but I just get freaked out at the, like when it says that you're allergic to red meat now, then it's like, no steak, no prime rib, no like, pork, like you said. It's like, well, what does that mean exactly? Like if you're allergic to it, you like literally like break out and swell up and like,
yes,
like can't breathe because you're like throat, the whole thing, huh?
Yeah, you're usually more allergic to one than you are the other. And like sometimes you can eat, like if you're more allergic to pork than beef, then you can eat a small amount of beef like during the month and still be okay. But like but like when you first get it, I don't think you can eat either one of them. Like, but like mom goes and gets, and like sometimes her beef levels are higher than her pork levels. So whichever one's the lowest, she can have a few pieces of that kind of meat that month, and then she stays away from the other. But like, yeah, I had a friend that's been hospitalized over it, and I'm gonna tell y'all something. And I hate I hate sharing this, but it's so weird because I have had like 3 of my cousins had went and done this, and it makes no sense to me, but they got acupuncture, and they claim that cleared up their alpha gal. I have no idea how that worked or why that worked, or you know what I mean. But like, they are my first cousins, and all three of them claim that they can eat meat now after having acupuncture done. So
that's interesting.
Same
doctor.
Medical advice, but like, I'm just like, you know, but that's so weird. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Is it the same doctor, the same practitioner, or whatever?
No, I mean, no, I don't really say go to the same doctor, but like, one of them went and got the acupuncture. Like, I've heard there's three of them now of my cousins that claim that they can eat meat now that they had that done, and I have no idea how in the world that would even have anything to do with that. So
yeah.
But I gotta go, Scott. Dave's getting ready to start here in a few minutes. It's good to see y'all.
Catch you later.
Good to see you, Robin. Have
Bye,
a good day.
Y'all have a good one.
So, Joel, were you the gentleman that was presenting the information? I think it was about a week ago. About the different like philosophy and stuff, or is that someone else?
What was it that was presented?
Like all the different like philosophies about a bunch of stuff, actually.
Yeah, we were trying to get.
Was that him or?
Nell, or you refer, because we had Nell on earlier and then Cafe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it may have been them. Anyway, never mind.
We do spend a lot of time discussing ontology around here, but I'm kind of, I don't really take much of a position on it. I like to kind of critique ideas, discuss ideas, but I don't think I would have been the one that you heard doing a presentation.
Joel is a quietist.
A quietist.
Can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah. No, I mean quietist, like the philosophical position of being a quietist. Mainly,
you got
someone who mainly engages in the critiques of different views, but never engaging any particular view. You know, just mainly interested in critiquing views or finding, you know, problems or strong points on any view.
Well, certainly when it comes to ontology, that's my feeling is because I'm agnostic about accepting any conclusion about it. So I'm more interested in just kind of giving the reasons why I don't accept the various reasons. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of other philosophical positions that I take on various things.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds practical. Is that what a pragmatist or whatever? Or? Probably not. But
well, when it comes to what, but like like beliefs and or morality,
just being, you know, practical, get healthy dose of skepticism, a healthy dose of truth seeking, and a lot of not diving headfirst into something. Probably something like that.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to accept things. I want to have good reasons before I do that. That's probably a response to having had beliefs that I was all in on at a young age, and then kind of had to be like, wait, why do I believe this? And I didn't change my position. And so I think once you go through that, you're a little more cautious about what you accept and what you don't. You kind of set some.
Let me ask you this, Joel. Let me ask you this, though, something I'm kind of never ever get to ask you. I always forget it. It just hit me when you said what you just said. So now I finally remember it. So, like, I really like the way, first of all, let me just say, I like the way that you find critiques of any view, like idealism, physicalism, whatever it is, right? Theism. You're good at, you know, asking questions that challenge. So,
thank you.
Are you whittling down the arguments that seem to stubbornly persist, or do all of them for you stubbornly persist? Like for me, like when it comes to critiquing, like say idealism, right? All my questions, I've whittled them down to a few that still stubbornly persist. But are you whittling them down, or are you just saying they all, no matter what the answers are that you've heard thus far, have they really done nothing to relieve those questions or anything? Like today, like you were asking about non-dualism and the non-dualism, making sense of dualism or dualistic appearances, like say feeding the hungry, feeding the poor, the value of it all. How can you embrace that and still be a non-dualist? And you asked that really good question. Has any of the answers sort of remove that question, or is it just still there?
Well, sorry, the question being that the question of ontology of what the ontology of.
Yeah, like you've asked over the months that we've known each other a lot of questions from day one. Has any of and now I've observed you ask like different sets of questions. Like you're not just going and repeating the same question, right? You're kind of like going into different questions, which is cool. But I'm just wondering, does that mean that those questions were answered sufficiently for you? Or have you whittled it down to these new questions? Or are even those old questions, they're just still not answered?
Well, I think we do sometimes return back to the same subjects repeatedly. And then, other times I'm sure we kind of look for new ground just for the sake of not being repetitive.
Oh, I see.
I'm sure, sometimes when I ask a question, I feel like I get a good answer. I also know a lot of times when I ask a question, I get an answer and I say, well, no, I don't. That's not satisfying to me. And so, when that happens, it doesn't really move you much. I definitely still feel that I'm in the same position I was early on when we first started discussing these things about just kind of feeling like I don't see a path to a reasonable belief about the ontological foundation of reality. I think even when it comes to saying, it's one thing to say that there's a material or physical ontological, fundamental substance. But just the idea that, like, if you were looking at it, how would you even know that it was, right? Like we know, that pretty much everything around us is made of chemical structures, made of atoms, made of subatomic particles, and more recently discovered, made of quantum particles, I guess. But it's kind of like, well, is that the fundamental level, or is there something beyond that? Well, right now we don't know. We haven't really been looking that long. But it's like, if we looked for a long, long time and we never found anything more fundamental, would we be able to say, well, then the quantum level must be the fundamental level, or would we say we just don't know? And I think we have to say we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think no matter how long you look, you just have to say, I haven't seen anything. No matter how long I looked, I didn't find any evidence that it was the case. And then you have to realize that that's not evidence, that the opposite is true. And so I try to be really careful about those kinds of things. And so, for a lot of people, they see walking that line as some kind of, I don't know what, tiptoeing or tap dancing or something. It like infuriates some people, apparently. But to me, it's just trying to be in line with good reasoning when it comes to these things. I think a lot of the things we believe, we just have no choice but to believe what we think is true for whatever reasons we have to think it's the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think also we can be in the position where we just can't believe something because we don't see those good reasons. We don't feel like we have those good reasons. So,
and sometimes it's a matter of a person's character, the way that they're sort of psychologically structured. Like there's this thing called like intellectual hunger, which is in some sense maybe even an irrational sort of thing. It's basically this impulsive desire to explore and make sense of concepts. And it's a drive that makes someone constantly ask why, long after people are satisfied with the answer of that. That's just how it is, right? And they keep going deeper and deeper. It's like a hunger intellectually for that person. So it kind of compels people to seek knowledge, not for any practical benefit, but just because they feel this internal impulse to find the answer to unresolved questions, maybe uncover clues or patterns about it, or always trying to put stuff together. It's just a constant nagging craving, if you will. And it hits a lot of people. It doesn't hit everybody. I don't know what the stats on that would be, but it seeks to just constantly ask, and so they're never satisfied to just say, "I don't know." Therefore, I don't care, or maybe it's not that important to me because I don't think there's really a answer at the end of the day. But there's people that want to keep the question open because it satisfies that impulse to do that thing, to do that whole, exploration cognitively. It's really a weird thing. That might be part of it with me. Like someone like me, I find myself doing that a lot. Just observe. It doesn't mean you're smart or dumb or anything. It's just how some people are,
well, I
I
think
can
like
admit that.
it's very important, like you say, that drive to try to find answers places wherever we can find them. And I think even when it comes to things like this, sometimes I say like I don't think the answer is very important. I don't think it's going to have a lot of practical value for our lives. But a lot of times we don't know that until we find out the answer. And then when we know, then we find oh there is practical value to this. So it could be, and I'm all for people, searching and discovering and trying to find answers. I just think that the position that you do that from is the position of I don't know. You have to be saying I don't know in order to be looking for the answer. Because once you once you say that's when you have the answer. That's when you're not
You're
looking for
done.
the answer
At that
anymore.
point, you're
Yeah.
done.
So
That's when
get
you're just starting over again.
getting comfortable saying I don't know is not the same thing as getting comfortable just living in ignorance of things that we could know and discover, things that we could learn. So yeah, yeah, getting comfortable saying I don't know, but I'm interested in the answer. I'm looking for the answer.
That's the whole
That's the place you want to be.
ingredient. You have to have that condition present before you even take interest. Because if you know the answer, like if people know that the sky is blue and that the moon comes out at night, there's not going to be a whole lot of discussion about that. No one's really going to want to talk about that because it's just common knowledge. Everybody knows it. It's very well known. It's always the stuff we don't know that we like to start talking about it. And some people approach it, like you said, they start from the position of, hey, I've got the answer to this question. Check this out. And then they go and tell you their theory. It's like, that's kind of dumb to me. I would rather say something like, I don't know, but here's possibly how it can work. Or this way seems to explain some things better than this explanation over here. And so you can play that game. And that may be that for me, that's a little more interesting. But to say I know, I never want to commit to that ever because I want a virtue signal for being open to learn, because if you know everything, you can't learn shit. You know, you've gotta start from a position of need. You know, there's a need for delving into some philosophical ontology. It's because you really don't know and you're trying to figure it out. And sometimes a method you can use for figuring stuff out is you can look for other people, like maybe just maybe I don't know it all. And so maybe the best way to pull out of people their ideas that are maybe smarter than yours is to challenge them. You know, then they'll start using their noodle to refute you, because it's like now it's a game. It's kind of like chess, you know. And this is why I kind of like debates a little bit, because it forced, because my ego is out of it. Like I like debates I like to act like, you know, I'm trying to prove a point or whatever. What I'm really trying to do is get you to teach me something I don't know already. And so I have to like get you to stop making the same argument. I've already heard that argument, and this is the reason why it doesn't make sense to me. So maybe you can come up with another way to make an argument that would make sense. You know, and I guess that's what I'm in it for, just to try to pull teeth, you know, get out of you something that can make a difference here. Because
yeah, and that's a good exercise.
You can tell me you can keep repeating the Kalam cosmological argument to me all day long, right? I'm just not impressed. I'm not going to believe in God now because you've repeated it for the 15th time. I already know the argument and I already know the answer, right? So come with another one. If you've got another, maybe that's what I'm pulling for, is that creative thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I could, I mean, I just want to agree with basically everything that you're saying. And, you know, some of that is what I would say is innate, that God put into us to seek and to be curious about those things, that to seek, you know, to ultimately to seek and find Him. Some of it is anxiety. Like I used to suffer from that all the time. Like I would stay up, like I'd be so tired, but then I'd go to lay down and I'd be rolling in my bed for 2 hours trying to figure out like why the world, you know, why the universe exists, you know, just like, you know, trying to, you know, form all kinds of different like reasoning and whatever. So like that is definitely real. And I think that God has actually put that in mankind to drive Him and to try to basically ultimately try to seek and find Him. But you know, the answer is I think the highest level the flesh can come to in terms of like the meaning of everything, it's still, the answer is still love, because you're looking at a positive and a negative charge that are just basically circling around, you know, chasing each other, and that would be like the particle, you know, plane of love, like the positive and the negative charge, you know, running after each other. And that's like, I don't think the flesh can actually conceive of anything higher than that. At least I wasn't able to.
Yeah. I've kind of come to that conclusion as well, for different reasons probably. But for one thing, I would just think that the word love is kind of a vague word. But and the reason I say it's vague is because it has different meanings for different contexts. So like there's a emotional kind of love, like a romantic love, sexually charged kind of love, or maybe there's like love for your children, familial kind of love, friendship. There's like a platonic love. But I think that the root of it all is a very basic, generic kind of love, which is really just a sense of coherency, like a togetherness, like a unity, unifying, complementary sort of thing. When things are deeply unified and complementary, that's sort of like love in a sense, and it gets expressed through, you know, if you're a human being, for example, or you're an animal, you love your baby kittens or puppies or whatever, so you want to, you know, protect their survival and stuff like that. And that's kind of how it's expressed, you know, a little bit exaggerated just from that basic unity. But ultimately, I come down to that. It seems like reality is just one thing. It's our concepts that make the dualisms, you know, the dichotomies and stuff. We're the ones that carve up reality in little, you know, containers and, you know, stuff like that. Reality really doesn't care. Reality is just one big energy, right? And we're just our minds and in the way we interface with it is why we have this relation with reality. Like it's a relation. Everything depends on how you relate to it. But it all sort of devolves. It dissolves into one thing. In my opinion, you know, a non-dual sort of situation. And you can get there with physicalism. You know, there's physicalists, there are monists, there are idealist monists, all sorts of things, you know, neutral monists, whatever. But the one thing they have in common is this oneness. And I think that's what I'm describing as love too.
That's interesting. I like the way, I mean, the way you put your ideas and express them is really clear. So I appreciate that. One of the reasons why I wanted to, you know, come up and introduce myself, like, I'm a born again Christian. You know, I became a believer when I was about 36 or so, and so I really don't know how I identify philosophically. Like, and I know that there's different like labels for different, you know, different parts of philosophy, but I don't even know like where to. I don't even know how to figure out what I am in terms of, you know, philosophy. I'm drawing a blank right now, of course, like the different kinds, but I just know that I don't know what I am philosophically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's ontology, and no one really knows if I think if we're being honest here, like I do a lot of jaw yapping about idealism and stuff, and I do that just to kind of put it out there and have a platform for something that I can argue for, you know, I think better than something else. But at the end of the day, and I always tell Joel and everybody this, I don't really know what the fuck I'm talking about when it comes to ontology. I just know I just know the difference between a good argument and a bad argument. You know, I think I do. And if I don't, hopefully somebody will challenge me and refute me on that. But all of that's just an intellectual exercise, you know. In reality is much more broad than just some intellectual description, right? Or, you know,
Yeah.
framework or something like that. Like those are very limited by definition. I've already said this is my boundary condition and this is the thing that explains everything within the framework. But does that really prove the framework? Hell no. That's the agnostic part, you know. And
Yeah.
but with Christianity, I guess if you are you said you were a born again Christian?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you a dualistic sort of Christian, I guess, in that case?
No, I would say I'm non-dualist. Like, I don't like the duality aspect of theology or philosophy.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So that sort of opens up question. Not that I'm trying to like debate you or anything, nothing like that, but just curious. Because when a lot of evangelical Christians I talk to, born again, they'll say that, you know, God is the creator and he created humans and the planet and the angels and everything like that are separate from him. There's evil and there's, you know, there's light and there's darkness, you know, there's these dualities. But there are other schools of interpretation that would make that a very non-dual sort of understanding, like very consistent with Buddhism. Is that sort of where you're going with all that, or have you ever really thought about that?
No, I would say that like there could be like some dual objects or parts of like, you know, the entirety of God, but ultimately the darkness and the death and the evil is going to be discarded and everything will be just light. The presence and the spirit of God. There'll be no darkness left in it because it's being purged. So, the duality eventually it just becomes light instead of darkness. So that sense, like the end is not a dualistic reincarnation type of like cycle all the time type of ending. There is a final destination. But I brought up a list of some of these philosophical ideologies. Like, I don't know if I'm a utilitarian or pragmatic or skeptic or transcendentalist. Like, I don't even know what most of these actually mean. So like, I'm trying to see how I identify in that regard, because my worldview right now is basically is a theistic, born again Christian, uh, red letter Bible, red letter Jesus, New Testament type of worldview. But I also believe that the Quran is true word of God. So like, I'm not your regular, ordinary, pew writing, popcorn Christian at the same time. So like, anyway.
Yeah,
there are some like Buddhist Christians or something like that, but that's kind of, I guess they would label that kind of new age. I'm just like, I don't know. I think I have my own. It's weird, Christianity used to be kind of a rigid box of these different, sects or whatever, but I think it really is kind of like overall being individualized, for whoever is the believer, because we're all individuals, just like our fingerprints are, unique to us, like our perspective, our relationship, or understanding of God is very intimate, and it's very unique to everyone.
Well, yeah, and I mean, if you're going towards a more non-dualist view, if you take that to its logical ends, then you would ultimately say that we are all God, and we are simply aspects of the same process of God, you might say, like the system of God. And we're just like a self-relation. So it's almost like, how the same brain can have different alters within it, or different streams of consciousness that sort of compete with each other, that a lot of psychologists talk about. It could be something like that, where it's not really there's no real distinct separations in the hard sense, but there is a relation. And I know that, it's in philosophy, it's called like the problem of the one and the many. It's like, how can you account for the plurality of objects and events and beings in the universe if everything is ultimately one thing, God? How does, some people say the Trinity solves that problem of the one and the many. And they'll say, well, it's a self-relation of three things that encapsulate all of that perfectly. And so the divine aspects and attributes are really one thing. But my thing as a non-dualist, I say, well, why limit it to three? What hard, fast rule constrains God to just three things rather than just a holistic sort of thing? And so if you go that route, which is really just, like I said, it's just the end result of non-dualism, you're going to realize that all there is one thing. If you want to call it God, or consciousness, or whatever you want to bring it down, it would have to be related to consciousness, because God is a mind, right? So if you're a theist, then you're going to go the non-dual route, and which coheres perfectly when Jesus tells the Pharisees, is it not written that ye are gods? And then, were we not made in God's image? And when Jesus tells his followers, I tell you today, when you do it to the least of your brothers, you're doing it to me. So it's like, when you see that homeless guy on the corner and you feed him, you're essentially doing something nice for God. So it takes more of a orthopraxy approach rather than orthodoxy approach. Whereas you're just leaning on the written word, now you're leaning on the actual, actions, the behavior, you're embodying Christ through your actions and the way you treat your fellow man, because that's how you're actually sacrificing to God, right? But you're not, it's not really ultimately a sacrifice,
Certainly. You can see it that way. I would say, for like the quote unquote, Trinity, the three are as far as we know, like the pure source that is distinct from everything else. And so, yeah, when you say that, yeah, we're all God, we're all God, and like everything is, part of God, and that's true. But he does also distinguish himself, because he is the most, high, the most pure, the most holy. He's the only one holy, and so like we're all like at a lower level of various levels down to him. But we know that like when he manifests as himself, it's in certain ways, and uh, usually it's either Father, Son, or Holy Spirit. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean it's in the same sense that the president.
I mean, you could say Borg. You could say like Borg Collective, or you could say like Singularity, or Borg Queen, or something. There's a hierarchy. There's a certain hierarchy
in everything
to keep the order.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at, is that even in our systems here in this realm, right? You have the CEO of your company, you have your managers you report to. You have to respect all that stuff. If you're in the military, same thing. You have to respect the hierarchies, right?
Mm-hmm.
That in no way betrays non-duality. It just shows that within the system, there are particular relations within that system. And God as a concept is that standard. You're trying to attain to this standard that's been set before you, which is called the Godhead or God or the Father, however you want to say it. And so you have to respect God in that sort of dualistic sort of framework. But the Christian mystic, like maybe an Meister Eckhart, for example, would say that, yeah, well, true. And, it's not that we are not God. It's just that while we are in this particular relation, we respect it and we understand it, and it gives it all the value and meaning. For example, how much more so it gives meaning when I give to the poor guy down the street, I'm actually giving to the most high God, right? That dualistic story seems absurd, but then on a non-dual level, it makes so much sense. And then Jesus said pretty much the same thing, right? Doing to others as you'd have them doing to you. All of these sort of non-dual teachings, they just kind of jump off the page at you if you really read it that way. Even though it's working within that context of divisions and dichotomies, that's what gives it so much meaning, Like it wouldn't be, like you said, what good is it? What good is it if you're giving only to those you love and your friends? Why not give to the stranger? Why not pray for your enemy? And pray for those who are actually persecuting you. Isn't that more meaningful? Isn't that sort of going transcendental with this duality? You're sort of transcending it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the God kind of love, just like when people talk about like war and, the enemy or taking life. Well, you have to consider that, yeah, God also created that person. Like, so we could dehumanize people and lower them to where we can actually, without even, breaking a sweat, take them out and move on to the next one. Like, if you're trained like that. But ultimately, it is another creation. are you going to destroy what God created? You know, that's a lot more of a intense proposition than just, shoot straight and, from 1,000 yards away or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, you literally are another part of God, another part of His imagination that He created or whatever. Is when you're feeding the homeless guy, you are doing something to another part of God's creation, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Now, and I guess for someone like me, you know, I usually don't talk about things in terms of gods and religions and Jesus or the Buddha or Brahman or anything like that. Although the way that we're talking about it now, I have no problem with. Like I'm totally cool with that. But usually when I talk to people, I never express ideas using language like that, only because it sort of throws people off. And so that's kind of the other issue is that, you know, we have to know our audience, you know, because a lot of people are already sort of embedded with a dualistic way of thinking. And so when you start talking about concepts like God and Jesus, and they already have a baggage with it, like a dualistic sort of understanding. And so you're never really going to communicate effectively. I think for me, the real important thing is to get the idea over. And I'll tell you how far I've gone with that. Like I talk so much about idealism, but I can easily, and I have been telling people in some cases, depending on the conversation, oh, I'm a physicalist, right? And they're like, oh, okay, so you know that, you know, and I'm like, no, it's just that I define the physical as consciousness, conscious contents. So it sort of takes out the labels that are throwing them off. And then it sort of puts pressure on them to say, well, it can't be consciousness. And then it's like, okay, so what is it then? Well, we don't know. All we know about it is how we perceive it. Like, right. And all perception is where? In your what? Your consciousness. So I'm like right there with you, brother. You know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's all in the mind. I mean, this is all a mind game, ultimately trying to figure out what the heck is actually going on out here, you know, because they split atoms and there's just a whole nother infinite amount of questions, you know, and observation that reveals itself to us. You know, we thought we were good when we could like trace uranium particles being ejected, you know, and stuff like that. But it seems like there's always going to be something that is going to perplex us. But I think that also drives human creativity, and you know, is ultimately a good thing. I do talk a little bit more like with the language, like spiritually and stuff, because that's how kind of I relate. But uh, you know, I think that because I have that, I can also express things in a philosophical way, but it's not my default setting.
Right. I mean, like for me, I just say that the rational path to idealism would start with experience itself, because that's the only thing we really directly know. And from there, we notice that everything we call physical reality is only ever known through experience. And physics describes the structures, relations, but it doesn't describe the inside, the intrinsic nature. So the question really is, why should we assume matter is more fundamental than experience? Idealism avoids that extra assumption by treating experience as primary epistemically and matter as a stable structure within it. It's not a leap away from reason. It's just a reevaluation of what we already have direct access to. And it's very conservative, you know. It's just that a lot of people, what create is people assume that you've made the same assumptions they have. They assume that you've already assumed that, you know, I assume an outside world is real that I have no access to, yet I know about better than my own experience. When
I
really,
think we all do that.
yeah,
We definitely all do that. Like we think that our testimony is a lot like everyone else's, and in a lot of ways it is, but you know, it's definitely not the case all the time, actually most of the time. And we assume a lot, unfortunately.
Of course we do. And, you know, from the time we're small children, we have this object permanence where, you know, when something's, you know, when you're a child, you know, if you show a ball and then you put a curtain in front of it, the baby thinks it disappeared. But then later on, as you grow, you start to realize, oh, it's behind the curtain. You know, it's permanently there. You can go back and find it and point to it. So it's something we all learn early on. And so with that object permanence as a core inference rule, then something like idealism isn't really going to make a lot of sense, because, you know, it's like, if I can't see it, then, you know, if I can't see some pattern, there must be something behind it. You know, it can never be just the pattern itself. We've learned that patterns are caused by hidden variables or hidden things behind the scenes. But it's just that when we dig deeper, like if you want to go the science route, we dig deeper, we realize that local realism is false. Like they won a Nobel Prize for that, to where local realism is not really a thing. It's been debunked. It's mainly about entanglements and stuff like that. So locale, location, and realism can't both be simultaneous in principle. You know, not to get too sciencey or whatever, but that's just what they found. And so the only reason I bring that up is it really challenges our intuitions, because a lot of our really sound science is based on our intuition of cause and effect. So you would think, why would they even start to question it when we know that when you drop a ball from this particular height, it's going to fall to the ground every time? And, you know, thing is located there. We can find it. We can do tests, experiments, predictions. Boom. What else do you need? But what science learns is that you can even dig deeper and realize that at another level, none of that even makes sense that you're talking about. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from, is we're talking about reality. So we're not talking about just what is on the surface level. You know, what is it metaphysically and ontologically all about? So that's why these sort of things, we talk about them so in depth, and they seem so counterintuitive sometimes. You know, sounds like woo-woo.
Yeah, definitely. Whether you're talking about molecular structure or, you know, atomic or elements, or, you know, atomics makeup, like we want to believe like there's these little itty bitty little balls with electrons floating around them that are making up the hard, you know, matter that we can feel and touch, right? Like we want to know that that's real. But the more that we dig into the physics of it, like the more that you know, that the way we want it isn't the way it is, but we still don't know. So it's like, it's hard for our minds to really wrap around it. Like we don't even know exactly how the electricity that's making up the communications in our computers and everything else, like, or just power transmission. Like we don't know exactly what the heck is going on. We know like there's waves, that there's flow, and there's like, you know, power source and, you know, amperage and voltage. But like when it comes down to it, like there's still an unknown reason as to how it's all working. If you're aware of that, if that makes sense. But like, so it's interesting, I think, for someone like me, is because it is kind of unknown, and it also kind of like it makes you think about what is possible in the particle plane, you know, here and now. Like, you know, I used to be a big like Star Trek, New Generation, like, you know, all those like episodes used to like really inspire me to think and stuff. And like, you can see how the future could end up being that way. And like some of the technology they had, like, you know, teleporters and like replicators, you know, that kind of stuff is just fascinating, because it's almost like, yeah, we broadcast TV news programs or whatever over the airwaves, but you could actually do that with physical matter. I think that's actually a possible thing. You know, we just haven't got there yet.
Yeah, of course. There's so much to learn, and it really brings up a lot of philosophical ideas like, like we're talking about electricity. I mean, the energy primarily travels in the electromagnetic field, not as electrons racing through any wire, I mean, the common way we imagine it is that electricity are the electrons flowing through the wire, kind of like water through a hose or traffic through the highway or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't move through the wire. This movement you're talking about is electric current, but what's really going on is the electrons drift very slow, and yet when you flip the switch, the light comes on almost instantly. Why? It's because that field is doing all the work. And so we think in terms of fields and stuff like that. Even in quantum mechanics, you have this field of potential, like you had mentioned before. In our textbooks, we have like these easy illustrations to kind of try to understand what's going on. So you have like the nucleus, and you've got the pictures of the particles around it floating around. And so you get this idea that they're just little billiard balls of subatomic particles and atoms and stuff, right? But actually they're not. They're really just fields of probability distributions, which is like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, materialist science, way back when that stuff was first proposed, it was rejected because it didn't really fit into the materialist paradigm. What are you talking about, fields and probability? That's not things. They're billiard balls. They're little balls that when you combine them, it creates things. What else do you need? But as it turns out, that's not really what's going on at all. It's just a bunch of probability. And once, an observation happens, which is an interaction of light onto something, when the photon interferes, then it collapses and it turns into what we call, a state change, based on, and you can kind of predict it. Quantum mechanics is really good at, if you understand the math and how it works, the theory, you can sort of predict with a real big accuracy what the spin will be or what the charge is going to be for a particular thing. But, it's not billiard ball. It's not mechanical machines, and it's the same thing with biology. Everything we're learning is just really slowly overturning. Everything is just, we're just going through the paradigm as we always do,
Yeah. The thing is though, like we pick something up and we can feel it and it's solid and it's like, it's what do you call it? What is it when like a drop of water stays as a drop of water and it doesn't like just, spread out and like,
surface tension.
dilute or whatever. It's a I want to say cohesive, but that's not the right word. Basically, it's a solid structure that, it's there, right? But the thing is, like, even through the walls that were like sitting in our houses or whatever, like, there's radio waves just dumping right through those solid walls and even our solid bodies that that are all different types and different levels of wavelengths or whatever that just slice right through it like nothing, because we know that because you could turn on a radio right now and you would be catching the the ball game or whatever, the opera or the news. So it's like, yeah, it's a solid piece of wall, but it's how solid is it? And like these little wave particles that are able to penetrate through. I mean, it's just, that's where for me I get like that's where I start to spin around in my head, like what the heck is going on here? Anyway.
Well,
I think I'm gonna.
That's not even anything.
Yeah,
Wait till you consider, like, if we relied on classical common sense Newtonian physics, we really wouldn't be here, because plants would never came to be. Like the reason plants grow is through a process called photosynthesis. but photosynthesis is almost completely dependent on quantum tunneling, which is the effect of energy transfer through the engine of the plant system. But for each packet of photons that enter into the plant through the sun when it shines a light and it reaches the earth and all of that good stuff, it has to find the quickest route in order to jump barriers within the plant itself. In the plant, though, for quantum mechanics to work, they always say it has to be isolated. Quantum effects can't really work within the warm, noisy, hot environment of, say, biology, right? But now we know that plants actually exploit quantum tunneling effects. That's how they're able to grow consistently, is through quantum tunneling. And how does that work? I mean, that's like a violation of, where it's a tension on thermodynamics and all kinds of stuff you can talk about. I don't think it really is, but I think that it's just a lot weirder than we imagine. And so now we have this whole field called quantum biology. Like DNA works with quantum tunneling. The olfactory system, the experience of smell, is quantum tunneling. Entanglement with like these English robins that sort of traverse the world looking for, like, they migrate. It's all done through quantum entanglement. And a lot of that stuff is really weird. And so now you've even got theories like orchestrated reduction, objective reduction, where they think consciousness operating within brains is a quantum entanglement thing. So the brain in this view is sort of like a filter, like a biological filter, kind of like a radio. It's picking up on quantum information in order to express, dependent on the kind of brain you're talking about. Like for a bat, quantum is, the consciousness, of course, will be bat consciousness, or, cat conscious, or dog consciousness, or however the brain works. But consciousness gets expressed through that brain, through these little microtubules, where it gets, processed, these quantum interactions. And it gets all entangled with the space-time geometries. I mean, it gets really deep, But if it turned out to be true, which they've got, more and more evidence, of course, is sort of coming to light to support the idea. So at first, the big rejection to that theory was the fact, again, you can't have quantum effects in warm, wet brains. But they found out you actually can,
Yeah.
So now you can actually do tests where you run some kind of magnet across some part of your brain, and you can trigger your experience. You can have a certain kind of experience that lasts for about an hour by tweaking with your microtubules in your brain in a certain area directly. You can turn the anesthesia on and off by tweaking the microtubules in the brain. So they're learning that there's a quantum effect going on with anesthetics and the microtubules inside the neurons. And so you can actually turn that off where it's not getting quantum information to collapse. And that's why you fall asleep. It turns it off. That's what the anesthesia does. It turns that microtubule off from orchestrating any coherent quantum information through your brain system. So it kind of disrupts that whole orchestra, where if you leave it alone, and then you can kind of test it. So they've done little tests to just kind of verify that that's really what's going on. So I think like a month or so ago, they did these experiments with rodents, and they actually were able to figure out how to give them tons of anesthesia, which would normally put them out, tweak the microtubules, and they're not even affected. So it just kind of shows and proves that there is some sort of quantum correlation there. Really exciting, really cool shit,
Yeah, that's crazy. It's wild to think about. Do you think that like when, say, a photocell of a plant like receives light energy from the sun, or even the electric signals that are within the nervous system in our brain and going through our body, do you think that those processes are actually occurring faster than the speed of light?
Yes, absolutely. That's the whole thing. Let me look that up because I think they specified like under classical mechanics how long it would take for that to happen. Let me see if I can find that out.
Because if that's the case, like you were talking about, like those tubules or whatever, so they either have a pre-programmed function where they are able to get kind of a charge, and that charge like illuminates the whole pathway, I guess. So like the end is just waiting for the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly how it works because the entanglement is something that's instantaneous. So it just depends. Like if the spin is up, then the connected entangled other particle will always be spin down. And if you change it, it will change the other one accordingly, faster than the speed of light. Even if that other particle was on the other side of the universe, it would instantly change its state through that measurement. So it's something, well outside the laws of Newtonian physics.
Yeah, pretty well. So, and how cool would teleporters be? Like a replicators? That would be awesome. In our society right now, like that'd be great.
Yeah, that brings up like all sorts of questions of identity. It's kind of like if you did a quantum, let's say, teleportation of your whole body, because essentially what happens is they say you're basically just copying all your atoms and subatomic particles, and you're just sort of recreating it on the other side. So you effectively die over here, and then all your atoms and everything like that is sort of reincarnated over there. But it's like, what does that say in terms of does it hold are your memories still going to be there? Are you going to be the same person at all? It brings up those philosophical kind of things.
Definitely, it seems to kind of assume that if you reassemble someone's physical form, right down to the every detail of how their brain and nervous system was, that you would have basically their personality, their memories, their skills, and things that they learned along the way, right?
Yep, it's really interesting.
Yeah. And you get the organic matter to deal with too. Like you still got to have a structure, right?
Yeah,
and it would have to like build you out of something.
Yeah.
And this of course goes into the question of what do we mean by you and self? Are you just the composite of all your atoms, like your physical body? Or are you all of your memories and experiences and things like that? Or is it a combination of all that stuff? Or what do we mean by an identity? That goes into that whole problem,
Yeah. I think, obviously we're biological beings, we're born, we're helpless, and we need weaning and lots of learning. And so that can't be done without your physical, without your body, physically being able to form like your conscious and your higher reasoning. So I think that comes first. Like, and we're definitely biological, animalistic, like, biological, humanoid, whatever, because like your biological imperative is like the most pressing thing on your mind, whether it be, you have to use the bathroom, you need to eat, you need to drink water, you need, sexual stuff, whatever it is, like, anxiety or, and all those things, like those are usually the most pressing things that are at the forefront of your mind. And then once those are satisfied, all the other stuff can, be ventured into and looked into. And so the idea that, yeah, unless you observe it, you're not it anyway. I think that's true in a sense that you can elevate your thinking, but I think that ultimately you're still built upon the biological imperative of, of our bodies and cellular respiration, and that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like with the teleportation thought experiment, like in relation to that personal identity, it's really thinking about what makes you remain the same person over time. So like you could imagine that scenario we were just talking about, like say you stepped into like this scanner on Earth, right? Then the machine sort of recorded the complete state of your body and brain down to the atomic level, right? And then your body on Earth is totally destroyed. And then that exact copy of you is created on Mars. It teleports that information to some other machine on Mars that rebuilds you instantly. So the Mars version is going to have all your memories, your personality. You're going to believe you're you. You're going to remember stepping into the machine. The question is, did you survive or did you die and a copy merely survive? Right? So that's kind of the identity
problem. Star Trek about this.
Yep.
And I was also thinking about a movie that came out, probably more than 20 years ago, called The Prestige, about a machine that did a similar thing. They were using it for a magic trick, but it was basically, destroying the person and recreating them every time it was done. Pretty good movie if you haven't seen it.
Yeah,
I've never seen it.
So Sophia asked, I think, to you, the freak. So he believes in emergence. Are you believing in strong emergence or anything like that, or what do you?
I thought I heard the freak say.
I mean, I would say that like consciousness, is an emergent thing from that comes from the structure of the mind, but that doesn't mean that that's its final state. Like, of course, I would believe that after we pass on, that God retains that part of us and we continue on. But ultimately, we are built biologically, and so the mind is emergent from that. Our consciousness, from the different parts of the brain that all kind of come together to make us aware, to be able to hear and look and all that other stuff. But the final product of that emergence is actually, in my view, is retained.
Yeah, like it'll be sort of immortal.
It transcends the body, right?
Yeah.
You're saying, so you don't think that like God makes a soul and sticks it in a person. You think God makes a soul by making a person.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that. Like we have a soul, like the life force or the energy that drives us, that is our life force, I guess you could say, and that continues on after we physically pass from this place. So like and you could argue like law of conservation to kind of like it's not always easy, but like that would be like one of the main staples or foundations of like, yeah, there has to be something after we pass on, in my opinion.
So with strong, so what you're kind of describing is something we call strong emergence. It's basically you're saying that the matter that comprises the brain, like from the fundamental particles on up to the brain tissue and all those things, are essentially at the beginning stages, anyways, at the bottom levels, you might say, of the brain. Those pieces of matter are non-experiential, right? Like there's no experience within each neuron or each subatomic particle that makes up the neurons, right? Are you saying that it starts off kind of like a non-experiential grouping, and then when it gets to a certain particular level of complexity or interaction, that's kind of when the consciousness sort of emerges, right?
Yeah, I think so. There's, I guess you could say it's almost like any kind of like electrical appliance that if you cut the power to it, it's not working. But as long as the power source is on and it's, like your brain is aware, like you're conscious, we're who we are, like all the different complexities of our personalities and the awareness and communication and all that stuff. Like, but that energy.
So you're saying, okay, gotcha. So you're mainly talking about like the mind, like what the brain does, like you said, like identity, memory formation, personality traits, all those emotional traits, all those sort of things emerge.
Yeah, like that would be, emerging from the physical brain, making up our conscious, but when we physically pass, like that energy is immediately retained by God, and that, as our soul, whether we be joined to his spirit or not. But so there's two releases of energy when we pass on. Of course, we have that emergent consciousness that does move on like right away, and then you have, of course, the fleshly body that, oxygen, the O2 starts to decay the body, and that goes back to, the earth or whatever. So yeah, that's what
so it's almost
I don't
like
know what that's called, but that's yeah.
What you're saying is pretty much like a brand new sort of feature has emerged from something totally different from what it was, like kind of like something that's one way creates something totally different from itself, disconnected from. So in other words, like from what I understand, emergence is like what is the ontological difference between the underlying physical system and the emergent property that is produced by it? So like if consciousness emerges, what is that new thing that we're talking about? Like what exists after emergence that did not exist before it? I think the first thing that you would probably like to say is something like an experience, like the capacity to be aware of an experience, or this awareness sort of generates from all of that matter, right? So the question that, and are you familiar with the hard problem of consciousness?
I think I've heard that, but all these different terms and stuff, I sometimes will forget what they mean.
Okay. So the hard problem of consciousness was coined by David Chalmers back in the mid-90s, and he was approaching it from a materialist point of view. And he says, so there's some problems on that materialist point of view. So basically you ask the questions, well, how does that emergence occur, right? So you want to ask, the materialist might want to ask, well, what is the mechanism from which non-conscious parts produce this experiential quality? How do we get from third person, non-thinking, non-conscious matter into this first person subjective view of all that? So this is kind of like the most important question. So if neurons are not consciousness individually, then how do billions of unconscious interactions generate that subjective experience, right? That's the question it's trying to ask. And so, you want to ask, well, is emergence as a concept, is it explanatory at all, or is it just kind of descriptive on what's going on? So like when you say like consciousness emerges, are you explaining consciousness, or are you giving it a label to the phenomena? It's often called like emergence as a placeholder. And specifically strong emergence, because I'll let you know that I believe in weak emergent. Most people don't have a problem with weak emergence because you're just getting a different mode from something that they have that you can trace back logically to it, right? Like the fire triangle, you can combine like oxygen, heat, and combustion, and then you have this thing called fire. But there's no fireness inside oxygen. There's no fire inside the combustion, right? But if you put all these things together, you get this new thing called fire. But notice the fire is a physical property that you can actually trace very logically. That's why we know it's the case. We can trace it very and you do it all the time when you strike a match or whatever, right? So, but the difference with something like consciousness coming from the brain, so you cannot trace them back logically. That's why they call it the hard problem, because essentially what you're saying is well, if I just add enough zeros, I'll get a non-zero number. Because it's essentially saying that, because you're saying that matter essentially has zero experience along with it. But somehow, if we just combine enough of this non-experiential stuff together in just the right way, then we're going to have some consciousness. This will go from, 0 plus a million zeros to the number 2 or something. Like, there's no explanation for that. It's like like I said, it's called hand wavy emergence, or strong emergence. So yeah.
I think the way you described it, the second way you described it, were like, I think I'm just like giving it a label. I'm not saying exactly how it does emerge, but I'm like kind of labeling what it is, that
you make it
that
accurate.
we're calling it.
Yeah. You've got a very rational viewpoint, because it seems to make sense. I mean, the brain is obviously correlated, right?
And I just came up with I'm sure someone else has thought of this, but like basically what you have is like an orchestra, and the emergence is the conductor. Like
right. Gotcha. See, that's what I agree with. I can get with that, because you're not developing something new from something totally different. You're just sort of orchestrating what's already there, So that part, yeah, I think you're spot on with that. That's why or is sort of gaining ground, because it's saying that, look, we're giving consciousness as a given. It's just that the brain is able to orchestrate all the conscious moments together in a way to unify into one conscious.
There you go. It's almost like the Death Star in Star Wars, or how it had like 5 beams and it combined into the one, vectors, and then it shot out the one beam.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
Sophia, she's in the live chat. I hope she's still there, but she has a model called the LFM model, and it kind of looks at that. It's kind of like how you can shine like a white light into a prism, and then the prism will show blue light, red light, all these different lights, right? But it's all sort of emerges from that one light. It just has to pass through that prism. And so in her view, I think the brain is kind of like that prism, and then it's using like a frequency in order to, just like or it uses a quantum frequency or whatever, and it gets expressed through the brain. Something similar like that is what it talks about.
Yeah, and we have, I guess you could say, like non-emergent, but I mean it is, but when we go into our dream state, that's not necessarily a fully conscious, fully awareness, kind of a state, but there are ways, and there is activity in the brain, but at the same time we are able to have experiences that are all over the board. I mean, sometimes they're weird, sometimes they're cool, sometimes they're great, sometimes they're provide insight, all kinds of different modes or dimensions or whatever it is, of the reality that we experience, right? So just that alone, the fact that we can have like that state and our conscious state, that's like the fully conductive, orchestrated Bach Symphony 5, whatever, whatever Ode to Joy, should tell us that we, that alone should tell us that our mind is able to be retained or at least continue on after we pass on from our physical body, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, we're talking about a brain state, like,
well, we did a really good thing, because a lot of people, they call them physicalists. They're people that believe that the ontology of reality is ultimately going to be physical stuff. But they don't deny that we all have this thing we roughly talk about, which is consciousness or experience. And so they have the, theories to try to explain or account for something intangible or third person, giving rise to something intangible like experience, something that's first person. And, they have experiments. So like a few months ago, and I talked about this a while ago, basically they say it's a simulation. Like, well, if all consciousness is just the processing of the brain, if it's just the interaction of so many neurons doing what they do, then that's what consciousness is. And so in principle, it seems like we could probably simulate consciousness on a computer or a robot or something. Just do what the brain is doing, and it will generate consciousness the way the brain generates the consciousness. So what they did is they replicated the connectome of a fruit fly, and they put it in a simulation, and sure enough, they got it exactly right. All, so many millions of neurons were produced by this supercomputer. They had the fly, and sure enough, it was doing fly stuff, behaving in fly ways on the simulation. But after testing, it didn't really have any experience. No one really thought after that they were able to produce.
Well, just for the sake of kind of playing devil's advocate here, how do we know that it didn't have any experience?
That's my question.
If it was having an experience, and how would we know?
Yeah. Right.
Like we don't even know that about each other for sure. We have to kind of just assume it.
Thank you. Thank you. See,
if the only reason that we're assuming this thing doesn't is because we're saying, hey, we know it was kind of made artificially from, I don't know what, silicon, or whatever they made it out of.
There's a aspect of incredulity that goes on when you talk about consciousness. And I think that this is I don't know if you saw this interview, but it was Neil deGrasse Tyson and David Chalmers were talking about the hard problem of consciousness. And Neil deGrasse Tyson just, kind of said it. He was like, first you guys said, well, if only we can get the computers to pass the Turing test, then we'll know that we've achieved creating consciousness. Well, we've done that like 100 times over. And now they still say, well, it's got to be more to it than that. So they come up with these other things, and we do all of the things, and somehow we keep moving the goalposts for some reason. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was asking Chalmers, he's like, well, when are you guys going to be satisfied? Because you make these goals, then we achieve the goal, and then you always want to move the goalpost. Like, why is that? And then and then maybe the problem is you don't really know what you're looking for, and because you don't know what you're looking for, you sort of back off and you look for something more to kind of maybe make it make sense. And Chalmers said, yeah, well, the problem is, even if we achieve consciousness, we would never know about it because it's private by definition.
Right.
I have some questions on that.
Kind of wall that makes the hard problem so hard is that, like, there is no way to kind of show consciousness or show what's producing it or making it. If it was emergent, you couldn't use science to show it, because you can't even use science to show consciousness.
Right.
So, in that simulation, was that done like a computer model simulation or I mean, that was probably a computer model simulation, but with the fruit flies?
Yes, that's what it was.
So when they applied it to the carbon, based life form, the organic matter, that's when it like was lethargic or whatever. Like it wasn't simulating the way it was supposed to, or how did that like?
Let me look this
where
back
did it
up.
fail?
They just said it did. To be honest, the few article, and you know how they rewrite the same article and it looks the same word in every paper.
Yeah.
And that was kind of unfortunate for me because I was looking for specifics, like how did you rule out that it was conscious? Because I was kind of hoping it would be conscious. That would have kind of sealed the deal for me, so I can get off and go on to other things. But all they did is say it wasn't conscious. No one in the experiment, and it was peer reviewed, and no one thought that it really did anything to show it was conscious. I think that's probably what it amounted to. Is there's nothing showing us that it's conscious other than behavior.
Yeah.
And so behavior doesn't, and they use all the same idealistic talking points. They say, look, if it behaves a certain behavior is not the same thing as what it is, it's not the same thing, like it's just how do we know it's not just mimicking behavior? So they just kind of concluded we don't really have anything here with this.
Well, what's wrong with mimicking behavior? That's humans do that.
You're not adapting to the environment. Like if there's a light and it's not drawn to it or something, that's a problem. Like, that would indicate consciousness. Like if it's reacting to stimuli, right? As opposed to just mimicking behavior.
Right. I mean, if that's the case, go ahead.
Yeah. Have you ever seen they show when a sperm and an egg combine and their chromosomes basically conception and you see the light of the light of the DNA structure like light up and stuff like it concepted, and they showed, I think they had somehow they acquired video of that, right?
Like a chemical reaction.
Yeah, like when the DNA, the Y and the X and whatever, they come together and you have the person conceive their DNA, and we see that it actually lights up. There's like an illumination that happens, charge or whatever it is, like at that point in time. So like that is probably the illuminated charge that gives a organic matter its consciousness or its own mind and agency. Because I'm thinking if that weren't the case, then we would be overrun with like Chinese soldiers right now, because they would be cloning people like mad over there. But they probably have tried, and none of the clones are functional because they didn't have that conception, illumination of the carbonation, if that makes sense.
So it's like, are you referring to the
experience? Like you were saying, the experience, they didn't have that. The bio what?
The bioelectric field.
Probably, without that genetic, merging or whatever, and the illumination of that, there's no higher functioning of a mind in say a human clone, because I'm sure they've tried, and as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure they have. But the thing is, like, the clones aren't functional. They don't function. Like, I think they barely have your lower level, like just breathing and your lower biological functions, and that's what really about it. Like, they're not really all there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's going to get tricky with.
So I mean, what I'm saying is like that conception point ties into your conscious mind of who you are, your agency, Because without that, if you just clone yourself, that clone is not going to have that life force, that spark that is in us.
Right, right.
Call it whatever you want, right? So I think there's a correlation there. I mean, I could be wrong, but
yes. You know what? You touch on something regarding identity theory, because a lot of people say, well, if you can just mimic down to every single minute detail of a mechanical of a person's mechanism, then you should be able to pretty much clone the entire conscious experience as well.
Yeah.
Well,
like cloning a hard drive, but it's not like
how
that.
do you test for that? How do you test for consciousness? Number one, like,
well,
other than
there is no test. That's the whole thing. I was just going to say, if you had something that looked like a human, and it also passed the Turing test in the sense that it was convincingly acting like a human, then why would you not assume, like you do for for me and for everyone else that you interact with, that it's having an experience like you are?
personal incredulity.
All right. Well, that's what I'm saying, is that it's an extrapolation that we make based on, we all have this firsthand access to our own experience, and that lets us know that kind of thing is possible in reality. And then we have these other things that seem very much like us, other people, right? And we say, well, seems likely that they're having the same kind of experience I have, but there's no demonstration of that, and as far as I can tell, there couldn't be. I kind of hate to speak, that
dogmatically,
with that much kind of finality about it. Who knows what people will be capable of in the future, but it just kind of seems like, what would you point to?
Yep. I can't imagine either. It's sort of a conceptual problem, and that's kind of why I say consciousness is one of these special cases, because like anything else, we don't have that kind of problem. We can talk about all kinds of shit that we do in science all the time, but when it comes to this particular thing, consciousness sort of stands in its own sort of category where it's not really testable in that way. All we have to go on is the physical behaviors, and we can extrapolate, but ultimately there's no way to really verify. And that's why I say, just for now, it seems to be a fundamental property. I mean, and a lot of people don't like that, because it's like, well, just give it time. And I'm like, cool, I'm willing to give it time, but just in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and treat it like spin, charge, gravity, length, height. They're just sort of fundamental things that sort of stand on their own, like they don't really need explanations beyond what they are. Like, just explaining something in terms of relabeling it doesn't really do a whole lot. It's kind of like saying, oh, God is the universe. It's like, okay, but that's just identity theory. You're just you're just changing the label. That doesn't really explain anything, right? So for now, I would just say consciousness is just one of those fundamental standalone things that we don't really need an explanation for. It is what it is. It's just, that's what it is. It's an experience, and it better than anything else out here that we can talk about, actually, because it's intimately your first person reality, and that more.
And I guess, like my reflection of that is that, like, because we have such good reason to think that it exists, because we have that firsthand acquaintance with it. We can be satisfied that it does exist. And then when it comes to the question of what's causing it, we don't necessarily need to have the answers for that.
Right.
We can kind of say, it's weird. But I think what I heard you say was that, when you look at an idea that makes it fundamental, then you no longer, need to ask the reason for why it exists. And I guess my reaction is, if you didn't need to know why it exists, if you didn't need a reason, then the hard problem isn't really a problem for you, because it's only a
Right. That's
problem if
what I'm
you say
saying.
I need to know the reason, right? So if you say, well, okay, I'll just make it fundamental and then I don't need a reason, well, okay, you could have just skipped that whole step and just said I don't need a reason. But that's another one of the I think I said earlier about my problem with like seeing and recognizing that something was fundamental. But I also have this issue with just kind of positing things as fundamental. On one hand, you're saying, well, the reason this exists is because it's fundamental. But also, when you say that, you're saying this exists for no reason. There is no reason you can say this exists because, right? You're just saying it just does exist, right? And that's not a reason. That's just
There's
kind
no
of
reason.
repeating it as a fact, So
Yeah.
that's why ontological models that say, well, okay, let's start with this. We're going to just posit that this is fundamental. And what we mean is it exists with no cause or no reason.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, I thought we were trying to explain shit. And usually we do that in terms of giving reasons for things. So when you start saying that things are fundamental, you don't seem like you're even engaged in it anymore. You're like giving up and throwing your hands in the air and just saying it just does, It's just
no, I know it really is, because that's really what's going on. It's unsatisfying, and it's the reason it's put in the metaphysics category, because if it could be explained, it'd be in the science department or the mathematical department. But consciousness isn't something that can be described mathematically or gotten at through that sort of methodology. So, of physics, like, if again, we have to pick our framework. So most people like to choose science and physics as the framework because it's been so successful with other things, right? So, like in physics, explanations always eventually stop. For example, like I was mentioning before about the charge, like why do electron have charge? Why does it have spin? Why do quantum fields exist or whatever? At some point, physicists will say, well, these are fundamental features of reality. They're not derived from something deeper, at least in our current theories. They're just sort of stopping points in our knowledge. And so consciousness is sort of treated the same way in certain views. Like the idealists would like to say consciousness may occupy the same role in ontology that something like charge, spin, and fields would occupy in physics. So we just look at how they're similar and what the problems are. The similar problem are identical. It seems that consciousness is a primitive stopping point because we can't get behind it. We can never get behind consciousness. So, and we know it more directly even than fields. So we infer like electrons and quarks and all that stuff, but that's from observation. But consciousness is not inferred, it's immediately present. So consciousness is actually epistemically prior to quantum fields, because quantum fields are known through conscious experience, and we can never test outside of consciousness to get behind it. And so that's why we can kind of say that it seems to be a fundamental thing in the same way, just even more so. Like it's fundamental on steroids, you might say, because we can't even get behind consciousness to investigate it like we can fields and spin and charge and stuff like that,
Yeah, I just want to say, like, the reason why I brought up the conception thing and the conscious thing and the dream thing is like the only thing that we could really do is try to eliminate, process of elimination, like eliminate and kind of like section out what, how it's happening, how it's emerging, and what it means. So if we know that, say, like a human clone is not going to be able to have the same function, higher functions of like, uh, paying attention to its biological narrative, and then being able to like, you know, logically like make sense of the world and like our conscious like right now, then we've kind of have a we kind of know that there's something to the experience, like you were talking about, the experience of being conceived, going through birth, going through adolescence, and, you know, and everything. Like the whole experience is what's making up your conscious now. And if you just try to teleport that into another copy, well, that copy is not going to retain that. It's not going to be able to recall on that. It's not going to be able to, it doesn't know that. It's gonna start from where it began. It's gonna start from where it was, you know, turned online. Like if it was a data unit, right? Like in Star Trek, like it only knows when it got first turned on. It doesn't really know anything behind that. As far as I know, I mean, maybe they were able to insert memories or whatever for an android, which is different. But it seems like the carbon-based biological life forms, I think it's a whole different process. And so the only thing you can really try to do is just eliminate what you can and try to pinpoint, you know, what the heck is going on, because otherwise it's just it's like Joel was saying, like you throw your hands up and just say, well, it just is what it is, you know. But we want to know more than that so that we could like somehow like probably, you know, eliminate anxiety, you know, be creative, like, you know, cause less harm to the environment. And, you know, those would all be good things.
Well, this is why I like there's different approaches to trying to get at it. It's not just throwing your hands up. And I like these approaches. One of them, of course, is the or theory, because if they did find out that that's really what's going on, then you've got something that you can principally test for. Like you can, if that's really the case and it's microtubules and that's that whole collapse is going on that way, quantum mechanically, through little isolated neuronal cells and structures and all that kind of stuff, then you could, in principle, create conscious computers. They'd have to be quantum computers, I'm sure, but you could actually create conscious beings in that case. And the other approach I like is this integrated information theory. And so it sort of tests for how to measure consciousness within integrated systems. So their whole theory is that wherever there's integrated information in a system, then consciousness will be able to exploit that system for expression. So it starts with consciousness as a just a given, like a fundamental. It says consciousness is there. If that's true, then we should be able to make these systems that integrate information, and then we should see consciousness sort of express itself in different ways, because it seems like that's what we see in nature, that consciousness is just expressed in different ways, like on a spectrum of integration. So like, and they kind of test for it too. Like they've even included IIT in some of the practices when it comes to treating coma patients and stuff like that, like trying to find out what measure of consciousness they are at. And I think some things have been successful on that. I'm not sure. I have to look back into that. But the whole idea is if you can understand how integrated systems work, then you can not only create, you know, artificial systems like computers or robots or whatever to be conscious, but you can also treat people with consciousness problems, like with mind problems and stuff like schizophrenia, or people that suffer from hallucinations. Maybe the theory there is that what's happening is you're just losing coherence. Like the information is sort of blocked, and so nothing's able to really communicate. The system is not integrated properly. But if we can integrate things to where there's a smooth, clean transaction of information back and forth, then consciousness will be able to sort of arise out of that, right? And so those are things that can get down to what's going on. Of course, it seems like there's a lot of naysayers who say, well, still, that doesn't explain consciousness, that just explains how consciousness is mediated or something. But even that gives you a clue, though, because if you can mediate consciousness, we're still a little closer to understanding what consciousness is, right? But I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's better than just throwing your hands up, you know?
Anyway, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and step down now because I need to get some food going. But wanted to introduce myself and stuff, and like I've been watching your show for good, I don't know, a few months or whatever, and always just in the chat. So I figured I'd come up and whatever, and you guys always talking about stuff that I like. Like I'm into this stuff, so thanks for having me up.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot for contributing. I appreciate it, and come back on again. Absolutely.
Right. See you later.
Yeah, it was cool talking to you, the freak. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm gonna get off here pretty soon myself. He's talking about food. That sounds pretty good right about now.
You getting hungry? All right.
Getting a little bit. Yeah, brother.
Well, I'm gonna hold you up.
Okay.
We'll talk again soon. I know. So I'll get out
Yep, we will. I'm gonna try to jump in on objective ethics tomorrow if they have an open panel, but we'll see.
Oh, tomorrow evening. All right. I'll look for you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for joining, and like and subscribe and do the thing. And we will see you guys next time around. Y'all be good.